Oh, little birdie, spring has sprung! Out with the old, in with the new. Like trading in the big store for Dollar General. You'll get the same big store savings without the big store hassle. And with no hike to the store, you're even closer to the name brands you love. Like fresh, tastic Gain detergent. It's spring in a bottle, people! Stop by Dollar General before Sunday, spend $15 on Gain-scented items, and get 5 off your next trip. Dollar General, it's the fast way to save.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Civil Alerts. This is your host, Sid Asha, here with you on a beautiful Tuesday night. Thank you so much for connecting, and I am so glad that the line is ever so clear. I got quite a bit of emails and some calls in regards to the connectivity. There was some technical difficulties with the Blog Talk system. I take it maybe it was some server communication issues, and we were disrupted a little bit and had to reschedule. I thank you all for hanging in there and checking out the archive and making sure that you get the information. For all of you, if you did miss out, there was a special Friday broadcast that we had with Abdullah Bey in regards to This Is My ID, talking about nationality cards, national identification cards. So be sure to check that out. We also, too, had a special encore broadcast featuring Yafa Bey and Taj Tariq Bey, and the subject matter at hand was dealing with stateless persons. And on Sunday and Monday, we did an exclusive interview with Apica Ray Bey. She is the sister out of the Memphis territory that you all saw all over the news, in the newspapers, on websites, in regards to the claiming of her a parcel of her ancestors' estate. And you can listen to that in the archives. And you have to excuse me, my voice is going out a little bit. I need to get me some more water. So I may have to play a little music for a moment to get my voice clear. But you all can take a listen to Apica's interview. And actually it was Apica and the Diplomatic Council of the Moorish Nation present to provide analysis and commentary. Her story is very multifaceted. And from looking at the news, one would think that it was just about the house. But as you know, you listen to her story, you will see that this is dealing with birthrights as cheating, child trafficking, human trafficking, police terrorism, anti-nationalism. And the reason why I say anti-nationalism is because the first time she really started having a little bit of adversity experience in that was when she actually went into the court down there in the Shelby County area to submit a name change. At the time, she wasn't aware that she should do a name correction, and there was quite a bit of intimidation that was brought forth through the bailiffs and the people there and employees of the court in regards to just that, initial step to self-determination and identifying exactly who she is. So I'll just have to say anti-nationalism. For a long time, we've been taught that every time we experience some type of adversity or controversy that is always about race. But when you think about it, it's the human race, and the race is divided into nationalities. So what we really have been experiencing throughout the land is anti-nationalism, and we've been connecting it to just the skin color, but it's a little deeper than that, because when you look into, like when you listen to Apica's story and you listen to even other stories, you may have friends, family, or even read different articles about people's experiences, and one will find that in a lot of cases, it's our own people that have a problem with us identifying and declaring our nationality and letting the people know that we are the Moors of the West, Moorish Americans. So, this goes way beyond the skin complexion. And it's really, when you think about it, it's the life and the breath. It's a spiritual thing that's going on. It's a psychological thing. So be sure to listen to the archives. And again, that broadcasted on Sunday and on Monday, part 1 and part 2. Tonight, the subject matter is on a good book, and the name of that book is called The Passion and Resurrection of the Moorish Hiram. And we have here the esteemed author, Freemasonry, Amen Al-Azar, and Taj Tariq Bey always says that you will meet the author's work prior to meeting the author. And what Taj said is so true, and it rings very true in this situation. About 9 months ago, he did a show on psychological sorcery. So while I was just doing some reading and writings and research, I came across Amen's book. And the book actually led me to Chapter 3, which is going to be one of the main topics of discussion. We're dealing with the Sorcerer's Compendium. I believe I'm saying that right. Y'all know I don't pronounce everything correctly, so I know Amen will correct me if I'm not saying this right. But the Sorcerer's Compendium, and in that it talked about the Kabbalah, Moorish science, black magic, tools of the craft with dealing with sorcery tactics, control tactics, and things of that nature. And then as I started going deeper into the book, and I looked on the front, and what did you know, and faithful has it that the foreword of Amen's book was written by Taj Tariq Bey. So, I contacted Taj, and I'm like, oh, my Taj, I just came across a book that I didn't know that you had wrote a foreword for. And, the connection was on from there. And shortly thereafter, Amen came on, and he was actually on the panel for that show that was titled Psychological Sorcery. So it's a divine order thing to have him here with us tonight. You're in for a treat like always because, on Civil Alert Rising, the goal always is to be informative, engaging, and third eye opening. So this is another one for all of the truth seekers. Islam, Amen, and welcome to Civil Alert.
Islam, Sister Santasha. Islam to all the listeners out there in this web.
Yes, I'm glad to have you. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Oh, yes. And it's a pleasure to read through your book. And then I guess we could start off. You could just tell the people a bit about yourself. And how did you first come into the consciousness and knowing about the ancient Moorish history?
That's quite a convoluted history there to recount. My name is Amen Al, and I came upon this knowledge rather late in my history. As a matter of fact, I'm employed now as a substance abuse counselor in New Jersey. I'm licensed by the state. And practically all of my life, I have been on a quest to find out who I was and where I fit in the scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always tried to understand something of my ancestry. I studied much of, coming up, in the early 60s and 70s, and being exposed to a lot of the national, quote-unquote, black movement theories at that time, and being exposed to the Nation of Islam in some respects.
Mm-hmm.
I had this tendency, and I just knew that there had to be something else more that was out there somewhere. And I think around the turn of this new millennium, or right before then, I was exposed to some of the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And so I tried to, I did do an investigation into it. Let me explain what happened a little bit. Fate have it that during my early academic years in the 1970s, latter part of the 1970s, during the acquisition or the getting of my associate's degree, I had to study Western civilization. And by some fluke, law governs all events, as I now understand. I had to take Western civilization 2. I was introduced to Western civilization 2 instead of Western civilization 1. And later, when I went back to college, re-enrolled and went back to college and was pursuing a bachelor's degree, I had to take Western civilization 1. By that time, I had been exposed to the teachings of Moorish science and a lot of the history behind the Moorish Empire. Mm-hmm. And we had this professor that was teaching Western Civilization 1. And we got to the portion where they were discussing the Moorish Empire or the Moorish influence on Europe. And it was so strange to me because I'm coming into this knowledge and I'm finding out that they're dedicating only like a couple of paragraphs to the history of Moorish science and the history of the Moorish Empire. We're talking empire. We're not talking country. We're talking a collaboration, a consortium of countries together that lasted. We hear about the Roman Empire that lasted from 711 to 1492, roughly, way after that point, because it didn't dissipate until way after that. So I brought that point up to the professor at the time. He was a European professor. And when I interrupted his lecture for that, and this cat turned pale, white, he turned red, he turned blue, and I thought he was going to pass out. Mm-hmm. And he says, just wait, please wait. He says, I want to explain something to you. He says, but please, just please, don't interrupt my lecture. He says, I want you to stay after class because I want to explain something to you. So I had been schooling another sister, so she's sitting up there beside me, and so we waited until after class. And before the class could end almost, the professor was back there, and he explained to me. Mm-hmm. He says, your history and your synopsis is correct. He says, but there has been edicts and there are laws that prevent the dissemination of this knowledge that you're talking about of Moorish history. He says, we cannot teach Moorish history. We are commissioned not to teach Moorish history on a public level. This was an eye-opener for me. I said, man, I can't understand that. You know, I really don't understand what you're saying right here. He says, no. He says, I will lose my job. He says, it's not part of the curriculum. He says, but I advise you and I exhort you to go and seek out your history. And from there, I pretty much understood what he was saying, and I went about trying to investigate where our knowledge was. And very little I could find at that time until I had to seek out other methods of inquiry. Mm-hmm. I couldn't take the traditional way because the traditional way had been all blocked over. I did come across the history of the Moorish Empire in Europe. That was much, much later, and it was a total 3-volume, huge work that was done, let me see, by S.P. Scott in 3 volumes. In 1904 was a copy that I have here, the Moorish Empire in Europe. And you have to read this very perspicaciously because even writers like this have a tendency to paint the Moorish Empire as composed of pale-skinned peoples, pretty much, which is the absolute opposite of the truth The Moors were, and always, in fact, the name refers to people of a rich melanin content. So, as I said, I had to take a non-traditional route, and I had to start to looking back in some of the literature, the literature, and I had to start to investing my time and energy into some of the medieval literature that was available, and some of the quote-unquote Holy Grail texts and other texts like this. And I started putting this thing together. And I understood that our history had been suppressed by a very ingenious method, a surreptitious method, through several means after our defeat in 1492, or our last physical stand in 1492, right? Mm-hmm. Because we function way longer than that, and we are still functioning to some degree. It's just under a different nomenclature now. Pretty much, Pope Pius, I think the fifth, around 1568, passed an edict that Catholic training was mandatory. And this Catholic training brought about a concealment of Moorish history, pretty much. And that's around that same time that Michelangelo was commissioned to paint the Sistine Chapel. That's around the same time that you had Leonardo da Vinci paint the well, a little bit before that, you had Leonardo da Vinci paint the Last Supper, and then you start to seeing all of the whitewashing of Moorish history. I'm hoping that I'm doing a pretty good job here explaining, where I come from, where I'm coming from with this information. Is there something else specific that you'd like for me to focus on?
Oh, you're fine. You can keep flowing. The only thing is that if you could just adjust your mouthpiece or the phone a little bit, it's just a little muffled.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
How's that? Is that a little bit better?
That is. That's better.
Okay, great, because I have this headpiece on.
Mm-hmm.
In 1486, there was a German author who wrote a tract of literature called the Malleus Maleficarum, which was the Hammer of Witches. It was written by a German scholar known as Heinrich Kramer, and it was published in 1487. Pretty much what this document did was to cause pretty much it was a tool of the Inquisition. The Inquisition suppressed the most important facets of Moorish science and Moorish history. And they hung witches, quote-unquote wiccas, or wise women who were Moorish exponents of his knowledge of Moorish science. And we had, this goes on and it takes different forms, and you mentioned something that was very, very important. You saying that a lot of times it's our own people who are against the exposition of this knowledge, like W.E.B. Du Bois and the Boule. The Boule was formed by a Dr. Henry Minton and 5 colleagues in 1904, in the opposition to Marcus Garvey's Back to Africa movement. They are styled, the Boule is styled like the Skull and Bones, which is the secret society penultimate of the secret societies. And if they were against Marcus Garvey and the Prophet Noble Drew Ali said that Marcus Garvey was his film runner, then you know what these folk were about. They had been paid off to suppress knowledge, and such people or such personages are the rank and file, the top of the rank and file of what we call Freemasonry today, or our version, or the Asiatic version of Freemasonry today, whether they be Prince Hall or other forms. In a lot of cases, they are, because their motto is to ever conceal and never reveal. And this is what we have, these are the avenues in which we have to look, because a lot of our history is suppressed in or hidden under the guise of Freemasonry in a lot of the new literature called novels that came out of the Shakespearean period. And we have to put this stuff together. We have to learn what is known as the language of the birds. And when I say the language of the birds, you probably, those of you who have studied something of the Nation of Islam's teaching, it says that Master Farad learned the language of birds also. The language of birds is a way of identifying or recognizing patterns. Patterns in literature. And there is an old alchemical tract or Hermetic tract that says that one book opens another. And as we are studying one book, if you immerse yourself into a lot of different types of literature, you begin to see a pattern. And what I have found is that right beneath the veneer of the history that we are studying, that's classical history, is Moorish science. Most of, when we look at the architecture around here, most of what we're looking at is Moorish science. When we look at chemistry, most of what we're looking at is alchemy or Moorish science, Moorish chemistry. All of these sciences, the arts and sciences, are pretty much disguised renditions of what came out of Al-Andalus or Andalusia or Moorish Spain during our reign or our supremacy on this planet. And it takes almost some type of supernatural force to blow these covers away and to lift this veil, because a lot of people won't believe what you're telling them. They won't believe when they are reading a lot of this New Age material that they are reading about Moorish science. When they are watching the Da Vinci Code, that they are referring to Moorish science. That, matter of fact, they have a new series on now called Da Vinci's Demons. They didn't know that a lot of people are not aware that Italy, or the home of the Renaissance, kept alive Moorish tradition and history longer than any other place in the civilized world. And they refused even after the Moors were conquered. This is why you look back and you find a lot of the dress and a lot of the traditions, the headwear, you can see the fez there, you can see the Moorish vest there, the pantaloons, and historically this is what you have here, even all the way down to the orders issuing from the Vatican. As a matter of fact, the commissioning of the painting of, the teacher who commissioned, or the person who commissioned Leonardo da Vinci was during circa 1452. His name was, let me see, Ludovico il Moro. He was the Duke of Milan. Ludovico Sforza.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you say Ludovico il Moro, you're talking about Ludovico the Moor. He was a Moor. So, I think in this history, this Moorish history, which this fake history, I'm going to say fake, because it's something of the matrix that we are living in. We are living in a new-fangled history where we are existing under a type of a lie. It's a huge lie that's told. Most of the history that you wrote, that you hear, that the Europeans are boasting about, is a prefabricated form, a reconstructed history that was commissioned by the secret societies, because after our defeat, the only roles that we were to play, us Moorish people, or us melanated people, or us Asiatic people, was as comedians, or as performers, or we could thrive in sports and music and et cetera. But we could not ever gain prominence in any of our former sciences, arts and sciences. No real collective prominence. And there has been a systematic sequestering of Asiatic people, especially in the West here, from knowledge. For 120 years, it was illegal for Asiatics here in the North America, to even read or to write. So there's been a huge effort here. The majority of the people present on this planet, there's been big lies about that, are present right here in the United States, or in the States, period. South America and North America were Moorish people, were people of melanoid complexion. And when Columbus came here, I think that when he did arrive here based upon the charts that were constructed by the Moors under the navigation of the Moors who navigated the ships here, the people who he saw and who he met here were, the majority of them were melanated. There's been a great big lie that has been perpetuated, and we just bought into it wholeheartedly, about the transatlantic slave trade. Some of it did take place. I'm not denying that it didn't take place, but the majority of the people who were enslaved were people who were already here. There were over 500 nations of people here when Columbus got here, speaking over 800 and something separate and distinct dialects. and the majority of which were people of melanin complexion. And this is a history that has been concealed, and there's been a whole lot of, I may sound like I'm rambling, but the history is so convoluted. We were taken on what was called the Trail of Tears, and we were marched around the country pretty much. All of us were gathered together. We were defeated pretty much, or suppressed, and marched around the country, and our identities were taken during that period. And a lot of the Moorish people and the quote-unquote Indians, as they called us, because India referred to, is a reference to indigo, which is a very black dye that they use, because Columbus actually thought that he had landed somewhere, when he landed in the Caribbean, he thought that he had landed somewhere in India because of the darkness of the skins of the people there. And there's a lot of accounts to corroborate what I'm saying. A lot of the paintings, if you go back, you can find paintings that the initial explorers, the European explorers, painted of the indigenous people here, and you'll see that they are of a very dark complexion. These people were enslaved, and their names and nomenclature was changed to Negro, Black, and Colored peoples. And I'm going all about, but there's a great big history right here, and that's been concealed through tricknology, if you want to use that term, tricknology, which developed into a science. And I just want to say something, because I do not want to extricate such organizations as the Boule out of this, because we could not ever have been enslaved without our compliance some type of way or another. There's no way in the world that 95% of the people, of the population of the earth, could be suppressed by 5% of the population except through compliance. Somebody's playing a game. We know who's playing the game. A lot of us are aware of who's playing the game, and our complicity in our own suppression or oppression. Would you like to chime in and ask some specific questions, sister? Because maybe I could answer or
yes,
give myself a little bit more specifically to particulars.
Yes. There were a couple of things that you mentioned. And first, I would like to just start with the actual title, The Passion and Resurrection of the Moorish Hiram. Exactly what is Hiram referencing?
Well, if we go back into biblical history, which is another piece of fabricated Shakespearean literature that came out, we find that Hiram was one of the key figures in the building of Solomon's temple, King Solomon's temple. And let me try to explain what King Solomon's temple is. I'm going to say this. King Solomon's temple is the structure of this government that operates now. This is King Solomon's temple. The structure of this fiat government that's in place now is King Solomon's temple. This is the prefabricated, because I can hear some breathings going on, out there in the audience out there. But this is the prefabricated rendition of Solomon's temple, which is known as this government here. Hiram was a master builder who was commissioned by Solomon to undertake the to lay out the plans for the building of this temple to Judaism. And there was a separate story that had been adopted by the Freemasons, or by Masonry, which describes a master architect who was fair and just and was at the head of an order designed to teach the sciences of resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
And these sciences, which are known as alchemy now, which later became known as alchemy, were fashioned under the guise of the building arts, or under the guise of architecture, pretty much. And a lot of the temples that were constructed in Europe were done by Masons or done by Freemasons. Moorish Hiram was a type. I'm speaking here because it's very difficult because there's so many ideas. But anyway, in the Masonic version, Hiram is eventually set upon by three of his underlings who would like to have his knowledge or like to be promoted to higher degrees of prominence in the organization. And one of the people was Jubelo, Jubela, and Jubelum. These were the three personages known as Jews, Juwes, because the Jews are going to be blamed for the destruction of civilization or the destruction of Moorish Hiram, the master builder. The master builder is us. We're the master builders of civilization. But there's got to be somebody who's going to be blamed for hurling the world into the Dark Ages. So who's going to be blamed but the Jews? Now the Jews, let me explain this right here.
Mm-hmm.
The people who are called Jews today are Khazars. These are Germanic people who adopted Judaism in order to further their prominence, to commission the setting up of Israel as a state. There are two types of Jews, pretty much. There are the Sephardic Jews and the Ashkenazi Jews. The Sephardic Jews are the Oriental Jews. You can recognize these people are dark-skinned people, majority of people. These are the original people who issued from places like Abyssinia. These were the Coptic people. These were Nubian people. These were the builders, original builders. These were the Moors. And you had someone the Europeans, in their quest to leave out of Europe and to come back and to begin this expansion, because they had to leave out of Europe because they were trapped in Europe. I'm not going to go into that whole history of how they got trapped into Europe. The history says, our history says that they were driven out of the best parts of the earth, which is around the equator, and driven northward into those parts. And anyway, they were released after a period of time, and they came down from their northern habitats, from the coldness of the north, and began to set up shop. And part of their expansion involves that little strategic point where all the traffic takes place between Africa and Europe, which is the Middle East that's going on right there right now. All the trafficking that takes place, all the commerce that takes place between this rich, fertile zone and Northern Europe takes place. And once whoever owns that spot is master of the world commerce. So you have these Europeans who are going to blame Jews for the destruction of Moorish civilization. And the passion and the resurrection of the Moorish Hiram entails our awakening from this slumber or this spell that we've been put under. And it's going to happen, beyond the shadow of a doubt. There is such thing as critical mass. Critical mass is when a significant amount of people meet an agreement or an accord. And we are now, the knowledge is out. Even though they're trying to suppress our history pretty much, when a significant number of us have this knowledge, we are going to be resurrected and placed back into positions of prominence. All we've been seeing for the past, since our destruction, has been some really terrible times. We've seen wars upon wars. We've seen the pollution of the atmosphere. We've seen science go wild, and we've seen the exploitation of people and energies and sciences. And now, how is this different than when we had our empire? When the Moors ruled, back during the Moorish Empire, there was a very rich period known as convivencia. This is when the Moors allowed the Europeans, whether they were Christians or whatever faith they were allowed free reign. There was a free reign of knowledge, free reign of an exchange of information between the quote-unquote Jewish people, the Islamic people, the Zoroastrian people, the Persian people, all the people, the Chinese people, the silk trades, and all this stuff was prominent during this period. And we saw this flowering of culture and civilization during the period of Moorish supremacy or dominance in the world, in the area of world affairs. So this is going to eventually come about again, and it's going to be after we have received enough instructions, and instead of being Michael Jordans and stuff like this on the basketball court, or et cetera, now we're starting to master the mathematics and algebra and chemistry and physics and other such sciences. We will begin to it will happen automatically. It will happen automatically that we will reascend back to our place as in the history of the world, as to our prominent place where we're supposed to be in the first place.
I see what you're saying. So I'm sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
So Moorish Hiram, the passion and the resurrection of Moorish Hiram, we had the passion was is similar to an initiation. We're being initiated. These things that we are undergoing is fashioning us into an indestructible type of humanity. And we have to redefine ourselves. We have to come back to understand ourselves. Right now, we don't know whether we are African American, black. Some people may even claim to that other term, negro. And we don't know what to call ourselves. And we have a lot of separation amongst us. And we have melanoid Hispanics and other Asiatic peoples who were once a homogeneous group of people known as Moors. I mean, the Hindustan, China, all these places were under the auspices of the Moorish Empire at one point. And during that period, it was a very, very prolific, fruitful period in the history of this earth right here, and civilization. So we will see that. We will see the revival of this knowledge and of these sciences and the uplifting of these peoples. It is bound to happen. It can happen slower or faster. It depends on the communication and us overcoming whatever it is that we have within ourselves that prevent us from embracing each other. We have to learn how to embrace each other. We have to learn how to embrace the Cubans. We have to learn how to embrace the Brazilians. We have to learn how to embrace the Delawares and the Cherokee and the Nanacoats and the rest of these indigenous people who are here in the Americas. And we have to, there's a lot of history, there's a lot of research that we have to do, and we have to research. And my quest and what I'm doing is I just want to stimulate this research. I don't know it all. I don't propose to know it all. Collectively, we know it all. And once we could find and come to a place where we can begin to start to share what we know, instead of looking at each other and trying to pick holes in each other's theories and try to exploit the flaws that we see in each other's teaching, try to find the points where they converge. Try to find the points that they meet. And then we will come to something of the truth. We will be able to reconstruct our history. We won't reconstruct it by saying, well, you know, I'm with the Moorish Science Temple of America, I'm of the Clock of Destiny here, and I'm of the Hebrew Israelite nation, you know, and we adopt these stances, and we separate from everyone else. Collectively, all of these points relate to each other. And once we understand how these points relate, then we will merge again and we will become prominent again as a people. And a lot of the suffering and stuff is self-inflicted. The position that we're in is we are the causes. We caused our own demise. We did this. We did this to ourselves a lot, and when we're pointing the finger, we need to point the finger back at ourselves too, because we are complicit in our own oppression. Even back during when Spain, Andalusia, fell, it was due to our desire to amalgamate with the Europeans. We thought that us Moorish brothers thought that the European blonde-haired woman was the prettiest thing on this planet. And we just couldn't wait to get them into our harems. And we did. And as we got them into our harems, we also invited their ancestry from Europe. And bit by bit and piece by piece, we undermined our own selves. I'm not trying to teach any type of racial prejudice or anything like this. But I'm saying that if you look about you and you can see where the destruction is coming from, and you are true to yourself, you can see who the police officers are and who are they protecting and who they're beating down. We can see, if we look at what's going on in the world and the nations that are suffering. Look, just open your eyes and see, and you'll see who is the oppressor and who is the oppressed. And this is all that I'm saying. If you open your eyes, you can see. And there's a lot of knowledge, and it's a lot of good knowledge for us to gather together. And we collectively, even at this state of affairs in our history right here, there's much to be learned from the Moors here, even in the Northgate, even in North America right here. We have a lot of knowledge. We're sitting on a lot of knowledge. We have a lot of brothers who are very studied in various aspects of suppressed history, but it's not collected. It's not collected. Once we come to a mutual understanding of our familiarity or our commonness, then we can put this thing together. Because we possess powers. We could intercept radar if we wished with our minds. We could cause materializations of matter, of material things with our minds. All of this is explained through quantum physics now. We understand that mind or consciousness integrates with matter. This is not, I'm not talking hocus pocus or something that's so far-fetched. Modern science is beginning to catch up with these ideas, beginning to understand these ideas. We have witchcraft now. Witchcraft is known as drug addiction. It's known as television. It's known as, in a lot of cases, as hip-hop. This is witchcraft. I mean evil witchcraft, or what they call black magic. This is what this is, isn't it? You were mentioning the Sorcerer's Compendium. This is the Compendium now. The Compendium is in the literature that we read, in the education that we, education systems that we have. It's in microwave hypnosis. We're being hypnotized in a lot of cases. There are broadcasts that take place in the hood that are unheard. Nobody don't even hear them. There are projects that deals with ultrasonic vibrations, where frequencies, post-hypnotic suggestions are broadcast at a microwave or a subliminal frequency. We don't even hear it, but we are being manipulated and we're being moved and motivated by things we don't know and things that we don't see. And there's a concerted effort to perpetuate this.
Yes, you know, and this goes back to that old saying that says silence is golden. And I bring that up because if you do inundate yourself with a lot of, the radio, TV, constant noise and things of that nature, the faculties that you were speaking of that that are inside of our minds that allows us to have dominion over matter, it gets sidetracked. It's like it's distracted. It pretty much slows up the process, and it does allow these silent weapons to pretty much to come to try to take over you and to distract you and to throw you off of your focus on what you really need to be doing. Another thing, too, that I see is that a lot of that interference, it cancels out one's ability to connect and tap into the Akashic record.
Absolutely.
So it's obvious that we're dealing with the some of the sorcery that it is by design. It is definitely by design. And, I wanted to touch base on several things that you mentioned, especially with dealing with focusing on uniting. One thing that I have found is that once you really start digging into the core of the Moorish science, especially with focusing on the history component, and even with dealing with the Quran, what I'm finding is that it starts uniting you with people from all over the world. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. I was in a restaurant one day, and I had the Holy Quran in my hand, and I was reading it. And this is the Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science. And there was a couple, it was a girl and a guy in there from Bangladesh. And the girl came up with the guy, and she says, "Oh, look, Circle 7. And so I just looked, and I spoke to an elder, and I was like, I just asked him, I'm like, do they use the Circle 7 in Bangladesh? And so, of course, I guess my question seemed like kind of naive, but, the elder was like, of course, this is well known, this is worldwide information in science with dealing with the number 7 and dealing with the whole ideal of how the planets are structured. Everything is based on cosmogony. So, yes, everybody does know. But it was so tripped out because previously, the girl and the guy that was in there, I had seen them forever. And this was the first time that they had came up to start talking like that because they've seen the book.
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
And then another thing, too, is that a brother who has his mother is from Haiti, when me and him was having a discussion about the titles, El Bay Ali, and then I was just speaking of a Moorish family that is known as the Suwali out of the Carolina area. And as you mentioned, the Moorish families have been rebranded as being Indians. And so when he saw the Suwali, his head looked, and he said, and I was like, why are you looking like that? And he said, that's my mother's maiden name, her maiden name. And he said, all of their people, they are the Suwalis in Haiti. And so I had known this brother for like over 8 years, and I didn't even, we didn't actually get that deep into discussions over the years, but that was like a bridge point. Another example, too, what I'm finding is that even a lot of the amalgamated brothers and sisters from Turkey, they clearly know of the history. There's a Turkish gentleman that owns a couple of restaurants that I frequent sometimes. And for some reason, I don't know, he asked me one day where I was from, and I said that I'm from Amaruca. And he said, you from the United States? I said, I'm from Amaruca. And he started smiling, right? And then after that, he said, this is really originally Islamic country. And he said, the people that they keep on saying that are Indians, he said, no, he said people were Turks. I said, yeah, Turks and Moors. And I said, and we are the Moors of the West, but everybody really is under the impression that we are black. And then he looked, he said, how do you know this? And we just started talking from there, and man, I have to tell you, sometimes when I go into his place, he refuses to accept my notes now. And it's like this identification, like a grace, like, oh, this is one of the ones, like she knows. It's almost like, and so it's so funny with dealing, with bearing witness, and there's several other experiences that I've had as well, but it's just interesting because I'm like, ooh, they all know But I guess, this goes back to what the elders say, where it's not really somebody else's job to really to tell you everything that you know. But as you mentioned, when you come into reading the language of the birds, you see the patterns, and then all of the connectivity starts. So I definitely feel what you're saying, especially with dealing with the idea of how sometimes there's not unity based on people like arguing their points to see who is right and who is wrong. But at the end of the day, when you really start looking at this for what it is, and I always have to say, Prophet Noble Jurali really is who they say that he was, because when you look at the information that he brought and his goal to pretty much, focus on the reuniting of Asia, dealing with, geographically, also too divinely, with dealing with our internal higher and lower self, that this is really for real. And then when people start to tap in, they will definitely see that there is no time for the division and the disassociation strategies to try to keep everything so segmented. And everybody will realize that really what we're dealing with is a historical, ongoing colonialism.
Absolutely.
And yes. And I just want to, before we continue, and I say that because when you have made mention, you talked about your professor at the school where you were, and he was saying that there were edicts written to keep this stuff out and we can't teach this.
Yes.
Two things come to mind. There was a 11th grade history teacher in the municipality that's known as East Point, down here in the Georgia territory.
Right.
They pushed this man out of the school system. He was teaching at Tri-Cities High, and he started deviating and going away from the curriculum. They really started teaching the children more about themselves, and they ousted this man so quick. And then when I think about how on the tax bills, especially with dealing with property tax, about 75 to 85% of the taxes are allotted to schools. So in looking at that, and I was down at the county one day speaking to one of the clerks there, and it was a lady from Hindustan. And I asked for a printout for taxes that was attached to a couple of properties. And we just started talking, and I said, this is so unjust. I said, I said, we really should never have to pay these school taxes, especially if they are persisting and keep on putting forth this fake propaganda and not teaching the children the truth. And I said, we are the Moors of the West, but they never tell us this in the schools. They cover up everything. And she looked, she said, yes, I do know. I know exactly what you're talking about. So we were just talking, and so there again, you have someone from all the way across the water, and they know exactly what's going on and who we are as a people.
Beyond the shadow of a doubt, as I said, that there's a systematic suppression of our history here in the West and in the world, because there is a consensus. They understand how powerful we are as a people. For a long time, there is a tale, which can come out of what they call the romances, the Arthurian romances about King Arthur and his knights, and which is a reference to us, as a matter of fact. One is of the wounding of Amfortas. Amfortas was the king, and he was wounded in the area of his genitals. It's written as if he was wounded in his thigh. It's called Amfortas' wound, which brought about what they call the wasteland in Europe. What that is in reference to is that our power so upset the Europeans until they were stalemated, pretty much, and they lost their vigor, and they were unable to do anything. It's almost like there's a tale that Friedrich Nietzsche, who was one of Hitler's little philosophers, spoke of about the tightrope walker. He was saying that there was this really highly trained tightrope walker, and he had been walking across this rope for years, and here comes this fool. He comes rushing, and he jumps over the top of the tightrope walker, and the tightrope walker, because he's focusing on the fool, loses his balance and falls to his death off of the tightrope. And this is what happened to the European when he understood how powerful we were as a people. He lost focus, and he went into a state of ennui or purposelessness. And this is when Europe pretty much grew up, and there was nothing that he could do. He couldn't do anything because when we had thriving, we had raised sidewalks and lined with street lamps and running hot and cold water and indoor toiletries and libraries in every city. The largest thing that he had was what was known as a kitchen midden. A kitchen midden was a big, huge pile of garbage where they threw all their garbage, and it was the tallest structure in Europe. The biggest structures and the largest structures they had were these kitchen middens, as they were called. And we look and we think that of all this royalty and the culture of Europe and back during the medieval times, and these people were very unhygienic. I think it was stated that Queen Elizabeth took a bath one time, once in her life. They were averse to water. I think that it stated that Shakespeare, was it Shakespeare? The King James washed his hands only once. He washed his hands one time in his life. The people who were known as Templars, who were set up and who had this tutelage under the Moors, they were given a pair of camel-haired underwear that they were supposed to wear for the rest of their lives and never take them off or never wash them. So this is the type of mentality that you're dealing with. In these huge castles that you see, people just went to the bathroom in a corner someplace and defecated there, and they had dogs that walk around and stuff like this and eat the stuff off the floor.
Wow, that is something.
So it wasn't as luxurious as people make it out to be. And all that the European has and all of his history, if he goes back, he'll find that it's a crude imitation of the grandeur that he experienced at our height. At our height. And what you find, everything that you find here. You want to see more science? Just go and look at any of the buildings out here. Just visit any laboratory, any scientific or chemical laboratory. You'll see more science. You won't see it under that name because the names has been changed. When you hear of algebra, you're talking about algebra. All the stars, which are the most ancient studies that we have Arabic names or Moorish names. So we have all these sciences and all the higher sciences, all these theories that are dealing with quantum physics. All these things have been worked out because the Moors were the custodians of the knowledge that was taken out of ancient Kemet, or ancient Kemet, or Egypt, or Nubia. Before the destruction of Alexandria, or the Alexander the Great came on the scene and stuff like this, and shut down the temples where all this knowledge was disseminated. So we find this knowledge of pyramid building and producing all these works of genius that science today has no explanation for. The Moors were custodians of this knowledge. And this is the knowledge that you hear, that you see all of these remarkable innovations that you see in science today. You see the solar cells, and I can put my telephone now out and it becomes a solar cell and charge up my phone. All these innovations and etc. They come out of Moorish science. They come out of the calculations of the Moors. Of course, things are being built upon every day, of course, and this is the meaning and this is the purpose of science and knowledge, is to be built upon. And we can't rest on yesterday's morals. And what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali brought was a scaffolding upon which to build. He brought a structure upon which to build, which we are to build a nation, construct a nation. He laid out the framework for this building of this structure. So we have everything in there. He talks about the different natures, and the different nationalities and the different cultures, all the way from Africa to Asia to China to India, and back to the temple at Heliopolis. If you read the Circle 7, this is what this is about. It is about Yeshua's travels and his initiation, and his in the science of resurrection, which my next book is going to go into much detail upon this entire science, because there's a lot that I need to bring out and to expose about what I've learned about this science of resurrection, and collectively we could put this science together again and make it functional. I don't have it myself, but there are a lot of keys that I have discovered with my collaboration with other Moors and Moorish sons, or Moorish sons and daughters, or people who are initiated into what they call Freemasonry, or the secret societies. I have a lot of colleagues and a lot of people that I communicate with, and collectively, we are starting to put together some of this stuff and to extract some of these secrets and to revisit and to look at a lot of the rituals and a lot of the passwords and a lot of the lore in a different way, and we find that there's a lot of our history and a lot of our science that is veiled over, that's covered with a veil. And in fact, that's the meaning of a revelation in the first place, is a revealing, or putting another veil over knowledge. Once this knowledge becomes too apparent and runs the risk of becoming known by in the collective, there's an effort to try to cover this knowledge over again, to put another veil over it. And that's called revelation. You have someone that comes with a new revelation, a new revealing. There is not a dispensation that comes out that would collectively, but it could collectively cause the realization of more liberty. What you find is more repression that's coming out. Yes, sister.
Speaking of Revelation, this is a quick little sidebar because I do want to get back to the chapters. But does the Revelations, as in the chapter in Babel, and I would say Babel because I did see it, an old German book that actually had Babel in the way that it should be, Bibel. But is that last chapter in reference to here? One day when I was reading Revelations, I don't know why something in my brain kept on saying that this story is talking about America.
Well, there are many levels from what I understand. There are many levels of interpretation. There's not just one level. One is talking about us and different places and place names. There are many different levels. And on another level is talking about a spiritual process or a inner alchemical process. That's what Revelations is talking about. It is a ritual. It is disguising a ritual. There are many levels of interpretation, so we just cannot look at any one record and say that this is specifically what this is about, because there are many levels of interpretation.
Well, all right. And then back to what you were saying about the veils. Let's touch base upon that chapter 3 with the sorcerer's Compendium. You're going to say that for me, Amen.
Yes, you're correct.
I'm going to get that.
Yes.
With talking about that, where I see here that there's a section that says the volume of Kabalistic Moorish science or the mythology of magic.
Yes. Yes, there's a veil. That is, as a matter of fact, I will read a portion of what I wrote in there, the veil of Kabalistic Moorish science or the methodology of magic. And I mentioned Albert Pike. He said that Moses purified and revealed the ancient occult wisdom teachings when he made the Holy Kabbalah the exclusive heritage of the people of Israel. And I asked the question, what did he mean by that? And Godfrey Higgins wrote two massive tomes known as the Anacalypsis. And he had this insight concerning that, what was really meant. And I quote him, the difference between the religion of Moses and that of the surrounding nations consisted merely of this. The latter had become corrupted by the priests who had set up images in allegorical representation of the heavenly bodies or zodiacal signs, which in long periods of time the people came to consider as representations of real deities. The true and secret meaning of these emblems, the priests, that is, the initiated, took the greatest pains to keep from the people. The king and priest were generally united in the same person. And when it was otherwise, the former was generally the mere tool and the slave of the latter. But in either case, the sole object of the initiated was, and it yet is, to keep the people in a state of debasement. That might be more easily ruled. Thus did the Magi in ancient, and thus do the chief priests in modern times wallow in wealth on the labor and the rest of mankind. And this is written by Godfrey Higgins. The book is called Anacalypsis, an attempt to draw aside the veil of the Phaeacic Isis, or an inquiry into the origin of languages, nations, and religions. Mm-hmm. So this book is published now. You should be able to get it from the internet, download a copy, a digital copy from the internet now. The Kabbalah.
Islam, I'm making you adjust your headset again. It just sounded a little muffled. Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, how does it sound now? Is it okay now?
Uh-huh.
Sounds better now?
Uh-huh, yes. Uh-huh, it does.
Great. Well, thank you. Keep telling me, and I'll keep adjusting it.
Mm-hmm.
The Moors of Spain, or Al-Andalus, as I said, they were custodians of the ancient Egyptian knowledge, or initiatory system. And the ancient Egyptians had a system known as the Tree of Life called the Paut Netaru, or the Tree of the Neters, or the Tree of the Gods, or the forces in nature. Neter represents the different energies of the forces in nature. And originally, the Kabbalah is based upon this tree, which deals with the breakdown of energies from their most highest source down to this earth plane that we live on right here now. The Kabbalah, the Hebrew Canaanite Kabbalah that we look at now, is composed of 10 spheres, or sephira as they are called, or sephiro as they are called, which represents how energy is broken down from its very first principle at the beginning of creation down to its manifested forms in this manifested materialistic, physical, tactile experience that we see right here now. Pretty much it deals with quantum physics and beyond quantum physics, because quantum physics cannot go any further than the nucleus of the atom. They go into the nucleus of the atom and they are trying to understand the energies that are taking place there. This is the modern physics, and it's based on these concepts, which were, as I said, were handed down through by the Moors. And the faithful brothers of Basra had constructed a device or a structure of 8 sephira or circles, and the Jewish mystics expanded upon it and produced a model with 10 different sephira, which describe the breakdown or the division of energy from its highest form down to its manifested form now. Now, what does that mean? It means that once you understand how energy operates in this universe, you will gain an experiential knowledge of how to manipulate or to use these forces to effect changes in this physical world, which makes it a very, very coveted or a very high level what could I put it, secret, which deals with numbers, which deals with alphabets, which are numbers, which deals with words, which deals with verses. And
what, like words like abracadabra?
Absolutely, absolutely. They call them hekau in ancient Kemet, or heka, or words of power.
Mm-hmm.
These words, every word that we pronounce, every syllable that we pronounce or utter, every root word has a certain vibration or frequency. And we know that all matter is oscillating at specific frequencies. So the words that we speak affect the physical matter, affects physical matter on a nuclear level. We don't see it manifest unless we really know what we're doing or know what we're talking about. We don't see the manifestation on a physical level. You can talk all you want. You don't see any changes in the structure here, not too much. If you understood how the vibration at a nuclear level, at a subatomic level, or a subnuclear level, then you understand where consciousness intersects with matter at that level or at a quantum level. And this is a secret. This is the science. And this is the key to everything. This is the key to everything. And there are specific methods or ceremonial magic or rituals, or that you want to call it, that could be used in conjunction with specific astrological conjunctions. You know, when the time is right, different places on the earth contain different geographical energies are collected in different places on this earth, and at certain times, energies are available, and there's a science. The science people know as Kabbalah, which deals with, people call them invoking angels or demons through incantation, knowledge of different stones and gems and herbs and roots, and knowledge of different cycles, and knowledge of different astrological phases and astronomical phases, and knowledge of energies that are present in the earth, and different meridians that circumscribe this earth, and in conjunction with the different energies in the body. And I know I'm saying a lot.
Yeah, because I have a couple of questions for clarity's sake. But so in essence, all of the esoteric sciences connected to the Kabbalah is what people are now coining as calling it New Age. But that's actually ancient Moorish science.
It's ancient Moorish science, and it's modern science. That's the thing that people don't understand. It's modern science. What they can decipher now, all these innovations that you see in electronics, in the area of radio transmission and microwave and nuclear energies, all of this is the use of the science. What you call modern psychology, what we refer to as modern psychology, is just a piece of this deep knowledge. This deep knowledge has the power to cause a transformation in our physical bodies, in our physical bodies, and produces, enable us to produce an indestructible form capable of surviving the death and disintegration of this physical body, and capable of rebirth, astral travel, and all other manners of what people would style miracles and supernatural phenomena. So we just have a little bit of this. We see a little bit of this, and we say, "Wow, we got these telephones." And right now, I'm speaking out of New Jersey, and you talking in Georgia, and people are hearing it way in California and all these other places, and we take this for granted now. But what we're dealing with are energies, are these very same energies that I'm speaking of. Anciently, they were known as, they would call them different types of spells and different types of magical things that were going on. But we're dealing with science. And this is the basis of what we call Moorish science. This is what Moorish science is about. And there are different degrees and different levels of it. And we rise in this knowledge by degree. Knowledge is situated on a lattice of constraint. You have to learn your ABCs before you can learn to put together words, to build words. And then you have to learn how to put words in places to build sentences and so forth, to write books and tomes and encyclopedias and et cetera. So knowledge is built. You have to know your ABCs before you could start to even talk coherently about these higher sciences. This is why you find when you look in the Nation of Islam, the Lord that Master Farad Muhammad constructed when he was talking about learning the language and the mathematical language that we possess, and learn the alphabets. It wasn't just talking about the profane or vulgar concepts of the alphabets as we know them. Each alphabet has a specific tonality, and it has a numerical equivalent, and it has a color, it has a frequency, it has a sound, it has a certain vibratory content. And once we understand the basics of it, then we can learn how to start to constructing language that has an effect. And our words could have power. And this is how these great edifices that were built, like the pyramids, these were all constructed based on mathematical knowledge such as the golden mean or the ratio of pi. And the Masons believed that they could build by emulating nature or the sequences or the forms they saw in nature, such as the Fibonacci series or the spiral that we see, the spiral that's in our hair. That when you look in the back of your head, you see the spiral coming out. This is the same spiral by which the nebula circles around if we look into outer space. And when we look into the growth of plants, they all take about the same form, which is based upon 5, the number 5, that has to do with the life energy and the life forms. And so by building structures or temples based on the numerics of the science, they can build places that will enhance the life force or amplify the life force or to create or contain different energies. So you find these chapels and these churches that are situated on ley lines or power grids along the magnetic points on the Earth, in conjunction with the positioning of certain stars and positioned in accords with the magnetic north and west, north and south, and the east and west, and we are able to build structures that possess power, like Stonehenge, like the Sistine Chapel, all of these, like Al-Azar, all of these structures are built by people with this Masonic knowledge or this ancient building knowledge who were able to build structures capable of transmitting or enhancing forces, life-giving forces, or destructive forces, because it can be used for either good or evil. So this is what we're talking about here.
But what is it that causes these different points to have like high energy, as opposed to other different coordinates within the Earth's plane?
There are so many factors that goes into this energetic structure here. We have the magnetic north and south pole. We have energies that are on this Earth that are affected by the light striking the Earth from the sun. We have energies on this Earth that are affected by the different stars, the different planets. Every planet in the solar system affects the Earth. Every planet affects the Earth. The moon affects the Earth. The moon, the different phases of the moon affects the production of energies or the lessening or the enhancing of energies on the Earth. The different seasons, the seasonal fluxes affects the energies on the Earth. The rotation of the Earth, the movement of the Earth away from the sun or towards the sun, the different alignment of the planets, and all of these things, all of these factors are influence the energies or the nature of these energies or the quality of these energies. There are grid lines all across this Earth here, which are affected not only by the stuff that's on the outside, but at the core of the Earth is a huge magnet. It's a huge magnetic place at the core of the Earth. And then there's fire in the center of the Earth, which has its own energy form. And there are metals in the Earth that transmit and transform these energies or transmute these energies. And as above, so below, and we have these same energies that are operating on a microcosmic scale within our own bodies. So there's a coordination between the structures that we see in space, or the planets. We have 7 chakras in our bodies, 7 major chakras. We have many more chakras than that, but we have 7 major chakras that coordinates with the 7 planets of antiquity. I know we got 9 planets, and we have 9 chakras. We have billions of planets in space, and we have billions of chakras or points or acupuncture points in our bodies. The Chinese recognize 360 different meridians or acupuncture points within our bodies, or 365. It varies depending on what school you study under. So when we're talking about these numerics, they are heuristics. They are points that are just designed to teach. We should not get stuck on the numerics. We understand the science. We don't need to understand the specific numerics. Because they are taught under different schools. The Hindus may teach it one way. The Native Americans, quote unquote, may teach it another way. You may find different theory that's produced in Zen Buddhism, you may find different theory that's produced by the Sufis. But they all, you have to have a special type of sight or insight. As I said, it's called the language of the birds. You have to stand beyond this. And you have to look down, you have to view all this stuff collectively and to see the points as to where they converge. If you just stand back and you go inside of one of them and you said you lock yourself within any one of these disciplines, then you cannot see the other ones because you are too controlled. In other words, you can't see the forest for the trees. If you are immersed in the forest, you don't know the vastness of that forest because you can only see the individual trees right in front of you. But if you position yourself at a high post on the top of some hill someplace, you look down, you says, wow, look at the vastness of this. Now I can see, look like there's a whole bunch of evergreens growing over here. There's a whole bunch of oaks growing over here or whatever, elm trees or whatever, and you can decipher better, but you have to take a standpoint or a perspective that transcends the parameters. You have to stand outside of the fixed circumferences to be able to do this. This is precisely why the Prophet Noble Drew Ali instructed us to honor all the prophets. We give honor to all the prophets. And this is why you find the Yeshua traveling through all these countries and undergoing initiation into the Solid Brotherhood, because he must take on all of this knowledge from all over the world collectively, because this is where the knowledge is. The knowledge is disseminated in a whole lot of places. This is the meaning behind the sequestering of Osor's body. Osor was killed by his brother Set in ancient Compendium lore, and his body was cut up into 14 pieces. And each piece was disseminated in a different place. And people came to worship the specific places, but they're worshiping only aspects of the one body that's known as Osor, which is just an analogy or a metaphor dealing with the sciences and dealing with the one science or the one religion that was broken up or split into pieces. So this is what we're dealing with here, and this is what pretty much the veil consists of, influencing you that one particular avenue is greater than the other, and that there is no relationship between what is taught in Judaism or what is taught by the Kabbalists and what is taught by the Sufis and what is taught by the Zen Buddhists and what is taught by the Taoists. It's all the same thing. And we get caught up in the language, we get caught up in the cultures, and this blinds us, and it causes a separation. And this is an art in itself to separate the people. It's called sophistry. Sophistry.
I'm sorry, did you say sophistry?
I said sophistry, just like sophistication comes from that word. Sophistry is the ability to argue from any point and to convince people from any point. This is one of the liberal arts. Rhetoric is one of the liberal arts that the Masons proposed to be one of the major things that we build upon. That's being able to hold the floor and to be able to argue a point, even a negative point, and convince you of its rectitude. So in other words, I could tell you a lie so convincingly until you start to believe in it. This is a science. It's called tricknology. That's what we refer to it as tricknology.
And this is where I have to go back and what I said about actually having a lot of silent time, you know, especially throughout the week when possible, because one thing, and going back to what you said about the power of the mind, one thing that is key is that when you are still and focused, even when, like you said, when the tricknology is trying to be put in place, your inner eye, I mean, your feeling, your heart, your gut, you know what is what and what's not. And it's so interesting on how it works, because even though it's, one may think that you can only hear, like, with your ears, it's almost as if, like, your whole essence throughout your whole body has ears.
Absolutely.
So it's like it pretty much takes in the silent thoughts within one's mind.
What we have, everything that we see, all the structures that we see built here are modeled upon the human condition. We see the computers as an example, for an example.
Right.
Computers are modeled after the mind of a human being.
Right.
And computers are programmable. We are programmable beings. We are going to be programmed, irregardless of whether we want to or not. We operate off of programs. So who's going to program you? Who's going to allow to be your programmer? Yourself? Are you going to program yourself? Or are you going to allow other people to program you? Because you're going to be programmed. You operate off a program.
And allow a good program to come through, you know? But, yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's something that you mentioned that. So that's a key tool of the craft for what you were saying with the tricknology. You said something so key with repeating a lie over and over and over again that it just becomes the truth. That is something that you mentioned that.
Absolutely, because this is the way the programming operates. It operates through repetition. You say something over and over. That's hypnosis. Once you say something over and over and over again, it gains momentum. And this momentum, the circularity, creates a trance state. And it locks you within that circle. This is hypnosis. This is why this has to do with certain frequencies in the music that we listen at. It's hip-hop. The bass that you hear and the drumming that you hear in a lot of the gangster rap, I'm sorry to say this, but this is, well, I'm not sorry to say it, there's a lot of hypnotic undertones in that music, in the rhythm of that music. And you hear that, and once your body starts to moving and swaying to these frequencies, you are automatically placed under the power of hypnosis. Anytime your body starts moving to music, you are in a hypnotic trance, in a trance state. And all types of conditioning and programming can take place there. Also, if it's used correctly, a lot of advanced or accelerated learning could take place. There's different states of mind. There's the beta state of consciousness or frequency that we experience in our normal everyday life. Then there's a state when we're meditating known as the alpha state that we transition to, which is favorable to gaining insight into a lot of things. Then we go into theta states when we're dreaming in deep sleep. And there are even frequencies that are even deeper, delta states, that our mind, which deals with different hertz, different frequency, different vibratory frequencies that our mind operates, where we can tap into different energies and cause, understand, gain access to the Akashic records. What are the Akashic records? The Akashic records, everything that we say, every word that we say is being recorded in the structures, is being recorded in the walls, the air, it causes a perturbation in the air, it causes the air molecules affect the walls. Everything is collected. Everything that's ever been said ever since the beginning of time is recorded someplace. It's just knowing how to go in and to extract all of this information. This is the Akashic records. And through being silent, through the mind, man could go back through the ages and could know the truth. You don't know nothing by being told, according to the Circle 7. To know the truth, we must experience that truth. We must be the truth. And the only way to be the truth is to go back and to experience the truth. So we can know these things. We can reconstruct this history that's hidden from us. But we can't take the conventional route, because the conventional route in the history books is a lie. So we have to reconstruct it from some of the fables, some of the fairy tales, some of the novels, some of the science fiction that we see. It's all collected there. And once we start, go ahead, sister.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
And once we start to investigate these ideas with an open mind, we start to seeing or to understanding signs and symbols and recognizing patterns. It's pattern recognition. Then you can start to put together stuff. And collectively, when we do this, collectively, because I can't do nothing by myself, you can't do nothing by yourself. Anybody that's got an umbilical cord, the umbilical cord is a sign that you are connected to the rest of humanity.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And we're connected to the stars and the planets and everything else. So once we are able to get past our differences and start to lock in or to tune in to the points of convergence where we do share commonalities, we will reach much higher states of development, of evolution, of psycho-spiritual evolution, if you want to call it that.
I hear you on that. And you had mentioned tales. And I saw here in your book where you had made mention of Robin Hood.
Yes.
Please tell us a bit about that. And then we have a caller that's been holding. And if anyone has any questions, do press number 1 and you'll be placed into the host queue.
Absolutely. Well, when we deal with such terms, Robin is the same term as rabbi, or rabboni, or rabbani, or rabbinate. Let me see here. I'm trying to go back in here to find out exactly one of the places where Robin Hood, we could find out something of Robin Hood. These people were, after our defeat, we were in Europe, we were prominent in Europe, we had to hide out in the woods. Robin Hood was just a type. This was a name that was generated. It's a generic name for a lot of people. A lot of the rabbis or the people with the knowledge who had to hide to keep from being destroyed by the Inquisition. Let me see. If we start to look back into what happened during the Inquisition, we find in the Salem witch trials that took place here. I'm going to read something from my book over here. It talks about in 1324, the trial of Lady Carleter in Ireland, brought up allegations that she was a witch, that she sacrificed a red cock to one quote-unquote Robin who was called an Ethiopian, and that she carried out a ritual at a crossroads. All these factors seem curiously close to those which belong to the Berber sect. The use of the name Robin and Robinette and other variations is more than once found in European witchcraft cases. The appearance of the quote-unquote black man is not uncommon. And it goes on and it talks about that in a little bit more detail. You have to get my book to get into the Passion and Resurrection of the Moorish Hiram to read a full breakdown of this. So even when you talk about Robin Hood and his band of merry men, when you talk about Mary is it's sort of a corruption of the word Maury or Murray. These terms mean the same thing. So the merry men were Moorish men. So Robin Hood was a rabbi who was hiding out with the rest of his Moorish compatriots in the woods and stuff, because we had to hide in the woods and stuff during that period of Inquisition. So this is what you're talking about when you hear the word Robin. It's the same thing as rabbi or Robinette or Rabboni. It's the very same term.
Wow. Thank you for sharing the light on that. I'm going to take a call here. Caller 83228. Thank you for your patience and welcome to Civil Alert. Please state your name, where you're calling from, your question or comment.
Islam, Sister Santasha. This is Brother Musab Yasir Bey from Texas Territory. How are you?
I'm well, brother. How you doing?
I am great. Brother Amen, I spoke with you probably about a month and a half ago. I gave you a call. I'm a student of Priest Hannibal Bey.
Islam.
We spoke about a month ago, and I was just telling you how much we really enjoyed your book, and we keep it in our lodge. I'm third and 32nd. I'm a master of royal secret Scottish rites, and when we came into this information in your book, it just took it to a whole nother level. We were really raised, and I've been a student of Priest Hannibal for probably about almost a year now. And so just to pin to some of the things that you stated in regards to chants and vibration is very powerful, because there are different places, energy grids on the planet, but there are most of those exist here in the northern area, North America. And one place that's very powerful is Mount Shasta in California. And when you're talking about symbols as the Ankh and the scarab, the winged scarab and things of that nature, all those things had power. Those things wasn't just symbols that we carried around. Those things had powers when you go to these different energy grids on the earth, to be able to become one with creation when meditating and experiencing what we call the nova.
Absolutely.
And I just wanted to thank you immensely for the temerity that it takes, because I know that you receive. I mean, this does have its difficulties in bringing this light or this information to the people. Like I said, I speak with Brother Hannibal, and I know the things that they went through. We're going through a lot out here raising the people, and we're trying to establish a temple out here and bring, again, like I told you before, we're trying to bring the brothers out of the lodge and into the temples to really give them an understanding of their ancient sciences.
Absolutely, and you find that the temple is the lodge.
Yes, indeed. And I want to thank you, Sister Santasha, for taking the call. I just wanted to tell you, brother, keep doing your thing. We support you. We're waiting on that next book,
And it should be forthcoming shortly, and I do appreciate. And it's not me when you give me a hand. you give yourself a hand. So I want to congratulate you also for the research that you're doing, and Sister Santasha for making this possible, this communication possible. So collectively, we're understanding the power of the collective here. We're nothing by ourselves. Collectively, we possess an extreme power. There's an extreme force when we are connected, mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Indeed, indeed. I thank you for taking my call. Peace.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Peace. Have a good night now.
You too.
All right. And before we close out, I think it would be appropriate to address Chapter 15, the mysteries of light, fire, and the celestial principles in man. And then I noticed here on a particular, I think I lost a little spot here, where you pretty much highlighted where you said that Hiram Abyss, Jesus, and let me see here. You know what? I lost my spot here. But you were pretty much saying that they were like an allegory representing certain elements within celestial elements within man.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you find if you question any initiate and ask them what they are in search of, they will tell you that it's light, more light. Light has to do, fire is a grade of light. Fire is a lesser grade of light. That's the most obvious form or manifested form of light is fire. And it's very important. We have light even in ourselves. It's called bioluminescence. We have light in our bodies. There's even darkness. There's no darkness. There's light, but the light is so brilliant until our physical eyes are unable to interpret it. We have what we call the pineal gland that's situated in the center of our brain, right behind the, or situated almost at the structure of the optic chiasma. This is where the optic nerves from both eyes crisscross. So in that area is the pineal gland, or situated between there. And almost in the direct center of that, well, in the direct center of that, and which is a vestigial eye that once was a functional eye, from what I'm told, and it's equipped with a lens and a cornea, and it has to do with our inner visions. It has to do with the light that we witness within dreams when we dream at night. It secretes a substance known as DMT, which is dimethyltryptamine, which is responsible, from what I understand, for the production of lucid dreams. Light is everything. Light is knowledge. Light, we are light. At the nuclear level, all is light. Everything is light. Everything is light. So light is everything. What happened was you have the pyramids. Pyramids are known as, the term pyramid, pyre is another name for fire. So pyramid, the mid is the middle point. So pyramids were devices in which fire or light played a very prominent role in the midst of the pyramids. Wow. There's so much to say concerning light. I had an experience, and I'm going to go to this experience. Years ago, I had an experience of being light. I understood that I was light, expanded all across the universe, all across the cosmos, and that everything else was composed of light. It was as if I was water, a glass of water that had been scooped out of an ocean that was allowed to be poured back into the ocean of light, where I experienced all power, all knowledge, and I believe that this is the quest, the singular quest of every human that comes upon the face of the earth. It is the summum bonum of, it's the secret, it's the royal secret, it's what everyone is searching for, it is what the Freemasons are searching for, it's what the Sufis are searching for, it is what the Zen Buddhists are searching, it's what the Taoists are searching for. Once we have this experience of light and can replicate the experience at will, because things, I believe that if you experience something, it can be experienced again. It just depends on factors. It just depends on reconstructing the factors that led to it in the first place.
Right.
Which is what this forthcoming book of dealing with alchemy is going to be about. But I believe that by having this experience of enlightenment on a regular basis enables us to build structures like the Great Pyramid, like the huge pyramids that's present in the mountains and stuff that's present in the Americas, like the temples in South America, like the pyramids that's found in Chechnya and all across the world, in China and every place else, and to effect marvelous cures and understand the nature of plants and understand the nature of gemstones, and to increase us exponentially as beings.
So this
on this planet.
Like unlimited, genius and creativity. This was like at the height of during like the early 1800s, going into the mid 1800s as well here, where there were tons of inventions.
Yes. This was that other part, that other aspect of learning that has been suppressed. When we talk about science, there was a hard science and then there was the soft science.
Right.
The soft sciences were suppressed. These are the sciences that you find that are being guarded in the esoteric societies. It's not that the brothers are guarding it or the Asiatic people are guarding it. They are custodians of it, but in a lot of cases, we're just coming to the knowledge of what they really mean, of what secrets are contained in that knowledge, of what pass grips really mean, what passwords really mean, what the rituals really mean, why you step off with your left foot, why you take this circumlocution around the lodge, why it is, why the office is stationed here, and here. Why are there 3 lights in the lodge? Everything is dealing with light. So we have all of this information at our disposal that's not interpreted. It's never going to be interpreted if we allow others to interpret our sciences for us. It's not for them to interpret for us. We have to interpret our sciences. And light is everything. When we're dealing with the Sephiroth, or when I was talking about the Kabbalah, we're talking about lights. We're talking about 10 spheres of light, or the breakdown of light. From the dark light, which is the invisible light, which is called Ensof Or, at the very top of the Kabalistic tree, or the tree of life, which represents the limitless light, which is darkness, broken all the way down to the visible light that we see right here that's manifested on this planet right here. And each color, as the color spectrum breaks down, is a different level of vibration or circular oscillation. This may sound kind of complex, and it is complex in its highest ramifications, but it is something that you can understand. And once you understand one piece of it, you understand the entire whole of it, the whole complex. So it behooves us to study about light and to understand light. The sun is light. The sun is the most important structure here that we see. And you saw the ancient Compendiums. Some people thought that they worshiped the sun or Atamua. Nobody worshipped the sun. People know that structure, they worship the principle, the light principle that's behind the sun. And they didn't worship it, they respected it, and they understood how powerful it was. Light is the life principle itself.
Right.
Light is life itself. The Holy Quran says that Allah is veiled by 77,000 subtleties of light and shade. So, when we talk about the mysteries of light, fire, and the celestial principles in man, understand how the light that's within yourself. And once the light that is within yourself is connected with its greater source of light, then that state is called enlightenment. And it represents the highest possible achievement of the monad or the human entity. And there's so much to say about that. There's so much knowledge there. There's all knowledge there. There's all power there. Everything is known there at that state. So, as I wrote in the back of my book, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. So we may face some stricture, or we may face some challenges. Once this knowledge starts to be disseminated at this level, and guess what? It's not going to necessarily come in the form of some physical attack on you. There are people who've gained some proficiency in the occult sciences, and you can expect psychic attacks. You say things are happening, he says, wow, why are these things happening to me now? Why am I falling into this category? It looks like I'm on a stroke of bad luck or something. Maybe you're under psychic attack.
Teach, brother. That's very, very true.
But there are ways that you can protect yourself, though. This is what we need to know, that there are ways that you can protect yourself. There are certain ways that you can enhance this armor that's around you. We have an aura that surrounds us. And it depends on the strength of your aura and it being strengthened. And the way that we strengthen our aura is through different incantations, performing different types of rituals, exposing it to different elements and different meditative and cognitive practices that we do.
Mm-hmm.
We can strengthen ourselves.
Yeah. And those practices have been packaged and rebranded too to be called voodoo. And it's just interesting that when you look at it, voodoo is given this name as if like, oh, that's dark magic, it's evil, it's wicked. Don't pay attention to that. Don't study that. But at the root of it, that is the Moorish science and what you're talking about and being able to have dominion over all things, and like you said, putting those protectors up. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Very glad that you brought that up.
Well, I think that's essential. You know, there's just so much. And if you've been into my book, you see that I'm coming from so many different angles until it's almost impossible for me to keep a train of thought because it's coming from so many different angles.
Right.
But they're all, in the end, you'll find they're all connected. Everything is connected together.
Exactly.
And so, yes. And there's no coincidence that Haiti underwent that deluge that happened, the tsunami or whatever the structure was that hit it, and the same thing happened in New Orleans. Remember
right.
What happened in Louisiana? Katrina? All these forces. This is a deluge. This was a systematic thing. I believe that it was a systematic, planned event. Because these scientists understand how to cause storms and how to seed the sky and stuff, and to stir up the ethers, as you want to call them, or stir up the elements, to cause these category 12 or 13 storms and stuff like this to erupt. They know how to do this stuff. And two of the things that you have to look at is in common is that Haiti, the Haitians defeated Napoleon Bonaparte.
Mm-hmm.
They are the first people who came out of this colonialization. They resisted it and won. And this is why they're facing so many strictures. And guess what? If you study that history, you find out that one of the prime impetus or the prime forces that strengthened them was their knowledge of voodoo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And a voodoo priest that effected this whole thing. You find that same thing in New Orleans. And I'm going to tell you, and my theory is that once you come into the knowledge of how to attain trance states and to go into different trance states at will, combined with a new scientific understanding of technology, you become a threat to the powers that be. Because they know that we are capable of knocking radars off course, to causing changes in physical matter, and to precognizing thoughts before as they form in people's minds. We're capable of doing all these things. And they know that collectively, if this power comes into our hands, we're free. We're free. So there's been a collective effort. The people who are really skilled in this knowledge are facing a whole lot of these psychic attacks, and even physical attacks. You see what happened to Haiti. You see what happened to New Orleans. You go to these places, these different places that practice, where the Asiatics practice these skills in Africa. You'll find the same type of oppressive forces there. Maybe a tsunami can't reach into the interior of Africa, but look at the swollen bellies and stuff that you see there. Look at the internal strife that you see in these places. Right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's a reason. There's a rationale behind these types of attacks, because they know that we're coming into this knowledge, into technology, and when technology merges with the softer sciences, with the quote-unquote occult or the psychic aspects of the science, that's where it's supposed to be. This is what caused us to thrive in Al-Andalus or Moorish Spain. This is what caused the building of the pyramids. This is what caused the great yogis to come up with all these deep mathematical concepts that they came up with is tapping into this knowledge. All science comes from that. Mm-hmm. All the science that we revere here, all the innovations and wonderful discoveries that we make come out of a place, an occult place, or a carefully guarded, or for the Moorish, for the Masonic brothers, a carefully tiled lodge. This is what this comes out of, this knowledge, and it's being protected. But it doesn't belong to anybody. It does not belong. It's the progeny of everybody that comes into this world. It belongs to us. It's your knowledge. It's your birthright. This is your birthright. This is that vast estate that the prophet is talking about. Prophet Noble Drew. This is our vast estate. Our vast estate is Moorish alchemy, which is what my this forthcoming book is going to concentrate on. This is our vast estate. I laugh because I hear these people, I hear brothers and sisters and stuff, and I heard this other brother's Moorish elder making so much sense. He says that we're trying to use all of these political stratagems that were designed by the oppressor when setting up this fiat government. We're using his same paperwork to effect changes in a fake reality. And a lot of people are misled this way. You have to accept your, yes, you have to accept your own.
I need to ask you to break that down. We have about 15 minutes left, but when you, continue, because I have some questions for clarity on that. Continue. Sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, to break that down, when I say that, is that you hear a lot of UCC codes. People don't even have the slightest idea what a UCC code is, right? And they talk about, well, I need to do this. You don't have to do that. Why do you have to go and, just like we see a lot of the Masonic brothers, we got to consult with the Mother Lodge in England. For what? You are the Mother Lodge. You put them on the block. You set up their government. It doesn't make sense. It's redundant. And it's the same thing. It's we got to follow such and such and such a form. We got to go down and take it down to the county, and we got to take it to this to the state, and we got to do it. Come on, man. Why don't you see it? After all that time, you should see something by now. Do you see anything? What you see is a pimping of a lot of knowledge. You see a peeking into the working of this matrix or the design of the matrix, and you think that you can affect change within a matrix. The only way that you're going to affect change, from what I see, is when you adopt your own stratagems. You cannot take the classical way. We cannot, just like I was saying, you can't extract your knowledge by going into classical history. You cannot affect change this way until you design mechanisms for change, your own mechanisms for change. And that changes from within.
I see exactly what you're saying. With that. I see. Well, Amen, it's been a pleasure. And everyone, the name of the book is The Passion and Resurrection of the Moorish Hiram. And, again, it's Amen Al-Azar L. The website where you can purchase this book, and this is a jewel, is www.moorlight.com. Again, that's MOORLIGHT.com. You did a beautiful job with this, and I have to say, Amen, as I was going through the book, I said, there's a lot of phrases and terminology in here that I wasn't familiar with. So, I mean, it's tons of keys. Excellent, and I'm looking forward to your next book.
Thank you very much, sister. And like I said, I could, if I have achieved some prominence or some knowledge, I've gotten it from my ancestors. I've gotten it from the collective efforts of other Moors and Asiatics and other brothers who are initiates in these societies out here that are theirs. And I cannot claim any of this for myself. I have been fortunate with the insight enough to see patterns. I can see patterns. I can put things together. And I think that this is a great thing right here. And collectively, this is what I exhort. I exhort everyone who's hearing this and all the brothers and sisters collectively to work together and to learn we have to iron out our differences. We have to find the points where we converge. We have to find what we have similar together. And once you put that together, you got something wonderful, man. You have something very important. There's so much knowledge that we collectively have. And it's nobody's responsibility to resurrect us but us.
Yes, indeed. Well, brother, thank you again, and we'll have to definitely reconvene, especially when it's time for the next release.
Yes, and I am very honored to present a sketch or a fragment of what you will find in my book here, because as I said, it's just so much information until I can't even do it justice by I could just mention certain things and skim over certain points. But if you get the book, I'm sure that you will be able to do your own research. Don't take what I say literally. I put references in here where you can refer back. And I want you to do your research and then bring it to the table again, to take this stuff and to put it in the crucible and mix it up and stir it around and extract a new substance from it. This is what it's for, and this is the way that it works. And thank you very much.
You are so welcome, brother. Peace and much love. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Peace and love to you, sister. Thank you. Good night.
You're very welcome. Good night. All right. Well, this concludes another episode of Civil Alert Rising. Thank you, as always, and we will connect with you on Thursday night, 9:30 p.m. EST. And remember, the goal always is to be informative, engaging, and third eye opening. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody.
Birdie, spring has sprung! Out with the old, in with the new. Like trading in the big store for Dollar General. You'll get the same big store savings without the big store hassle. And with no hike to the store, you're even closer to the name brands you love. Like fresh, Tastic Gain detergent. It's spring in a bottle, people! Stop by Dollar General before Sunday, spend $15 on Gain-scented items, and get $5 off your next trip. Dollar General, it's the fast way to save.